Damn. Nick found his flag.
Shame,
Now
man.
I'm the lone man out. But had to represent the boys somehow. I threw on the beanie, even though it's a nice old 55-degree day in Michigan here. But what is going on, my guys? We have Nick, Julius, and a special guest joining us in a short minute. But we are going to be doing a free agency breakdown. So without further ado, let's just bring him on. JT Olson, what is going on, my man?
Hey, y'all. How you doing?
Carlton Davis news.
Yeah, y'all got a good one yesterday. I'm excited for him. I'm excited for the Lions.
That's good to hear. Now, first things first, I'm just going to start off with the straight and obvious. Obviously, we're talking Carlton Davis, but draft compensation. Do you think that for a Bucs fan, were you satisfied with a third, or did you think, oh my gosh, we gave him away for nothing?
So I was actually extremely surprised they were able to get a third in return. I was kind of thinking more like a fifth. You know, Jalen Ramsey went for a third last year, a third in a player. So Carlton Davis probably more in that fourth or fifth range. So even giving 2-6 in return, one of them being one of the comp picks the Bucs got back this year, I thought that was really tremendous value for a guy who they were openly shopping along with Jamel Dean.
Why were they openly shopping him? Was this due to like just salary they needed to move on, or was there something that he's, something that you might have seen that they just people weren't too much of a fan of?
So there were a couple of factors. One, I'm sure you've read about, was his health. He's missed 16 games over the last 3 years. And, for a guy who is coming up on the last year of his deal, the Bucs have a lot of depth at that outside corner position. For a guy who's making $14 million, it made sense to move on from a guy who's kind of getting into his late 20s. The other thing is his lack of ball production. This Buccaneers defense, they want to force more turnovers. And Carlton Davis is just absolute stone hands. He is great at getting hands on balls and deflections, but in terms of interceptions, I mean, this last year, getting 2, that was a pretty good year for him. So I think the combination of health and ball production, that was the biggest factor along with his salary.
Well, I'm pretty sure we saw that firsthand on Carlton Davis Stonehands, where when we played the Bucs in the playoffs, Goff pretty much I think it was Davis. He literally hit him right in the hands and he dropped it. And we all thought, oh my God, that should have been a gimme for him.
Are you talking that end zone pass?
Yeah.
That was Jamel Dean, who's usually sure-handed. So y'all got away with that one. But
I knew it was one of your premier defensive backs. So nonetheless.
The only thing I really know Carlton Davis for is that block that Craig Reynolds blew him up on. It's about the only thing I knew. That's why we wanted to bring JT onto the show. Bucs reporter, just be able to kind of share some light. Is there anything we should know going into the season about him other than rough hands, but good positioning?
So the one thing that makes Carlton Davis really, really good, a fringe top 10 corner, in my opinion, he is great in man coverage. If you ask him to press man, he is one of the best corners in the league at that. And in terms of matchup, there is not a big body wide receiver who I don't think he can lock down. The A.J. Browns of the world, the Jamar Chases of the world, the Nuke Hopkins of the world, those big physical receivers, he is their kryptonite. So I know there's a clip floating around on Twitter of an interview Jamar Chase did where it said Carlton Davis is the hardest cover he's ever gone against. That makes perfect sense because that's the guy he matches up really, really well against. So going against the likes of Christian Watson in Green Bay and possibly Rome Odunze in Chicago if he falls to them, he's going to match up really well with those type of receivers.
Outstanding. Awesome.
Real quick, JT, I'm wondering, this is not really Lions related per se, but for the Buccaneers, does this create any kind of hole in your secondary, like a big problem, maybe looking towards the draft?
It does. I think corner was always going to be a need, but I think more nickel corner. Jamel Dean is still in-house. He's going to be the new cornerback 1. And they have a guy coming up, Zion McCollum. This is going to be his 3rd year. They drafted him 2 years ago, and 2 years ago he was unplayable. He was awful. But he was an incredible athlete, so you knew there was potential there. And then last year we saw him take a massive step forward. So Todd Bowles is as good as it comes when it's working with defensive backs. Bucks. So another year under Todd Bowles and Zion McCollum's athletic ability, I think they feel comfortable with that duo, but they still want to add a corner, maybe an inside-outside guy, maybe a guy like Mikey Sanders still from Michigan, maybe a guy like Kamari Lassiter from Georgia, someone with a little bit of versatility. So maybe day 2, potentially day 1 if the right guy falls, but it is a little bit of a hole there. It's hard to replace Carlton Davis.
Fair enough. One more question for you, JT. Carlton Davis, do you believe he is capable of, if he stays healthy, 16, 17 games, knock on wood, do you think he could be a true cornerback 1? Because we kind of had this belief of Cameron Sutton coming in from Pittsburgh last year. He was going to be our number 1. And sure enough, against a, decent wide receiver, your Darnell Mooney's, your wide receiver 2s, he looked great. But when he was faced against, Justin Jefferson, Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, it was tough sledding for him. So is this a type of guy where if he's faced with a real elite wide receiver, it might get a little tough, or he could kind of, hang with the Jamar Chases, the Nukes, and those guys?
No, I think he's absolutely a legitimate number 1 in the league. We've already seen him as the best corner on a championship team when the Bucs won the Super Bowl a few years ago. So he was the leader of that group. He named that group the Gravediggers, and that's because they just wanted to body people and put them in the ground. That was a young Jamel Dean, a rookie Antoine Winfield Jr., a box safety Jordan Whitehead. So he was kind of the leader of that group. He essentially ended Mike Thomas's career. He called him out, calling him Slant Boy, and we really haven't heard much since from him. So he's an absolute dog. He's a guy who brings that right mentality. He's going to be the leader of your secondary. I think a guy like him combined with Sutton as the number 2, I think that's a really solid duo.
Awesome.
Love to hear it. Well, if you have any other final comments on Carlton Davis, feel free to share them. If not, my man, thank you so much for hopping on, and hope to the best to you.
Yeah, the only other thing I would say is just beware of little quick receivers with him. As much as he's good against those big bodies, he's 6'1", 205. Those little quick guys are tough. So the DJ Moores of the world, that's always been a problem kind of matchup. Looking at the draft, guys like Ladd McConkey, just the little quick guys, they're a problem for him. But other than that, he's a really, really good man cover corner.
Awesome.
Good to hear. Good to hear. All right, great team. Before Julius, were you about to say something?
I was just going to say, I saw a stat that he only played man in the last 6 years was 13% of his snaps. So it's a small sample size, but hopefully he plays it a little bit more with here with Aaron Glenn and company, so we can get more of those strengths out of him.
Yeah, and honestly, that's something that is extremely frustrating for me, because if y'all watched any of the Bucs defense last year, the pass defense wasn't very good right until they got into the red zone, and they were a lockdown red zone defense. That's kind of a Todd Bowles mentality thing. He wanted to play a lot of bend but don't break, a lot of soft zone kind of stuff until they got into the red zone when you're not as likely to get burned by that big play. That's when they went man, and that's when they locked people down. And that's just a philosophy thing that Todd Bowles wanted to do, and I didn't love it myself. I'd rather them be aggressive. They utilized their skill sets with Carlton Davis. But, I think the more you put him in man, the more he's going to shine. So I think there's a really good situation for him.
Hell yeah. Love to hear. Love to hear it. All right, JT, once again, thank you so much. And I know we got all these Lions fans in here, but if you do have anything you want to plug, feel free. Any Carlton Davis, old articles he wrote, whatever, the stage is yours.
Yeah, you can catch my podcast this Friday. We'll talk about the Carlton Davis trade. It's the Creamsicle Chronicle podcast on YouTube, on Twitter. Catch all my written work on bucksreport.com. If you want to follow me on Twitter, my name is Icewater Olson. Not just Buck stuff. I'm from Michigan. I got a lot of Michigan related tweets on there. Let's go Red Wings tonight. Big game. So, give me a follow. Be along for the ride. Fun times.
Yeah, I've been following JP for a long time, and just always great posts coming out. It's very informative, sometimes emotional. I love to see it. Always love following them.
Yep. Appreciate it.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. All right, JT, we'll see you later.
Thanks again. That was
all right.
Awesome. Little
insight on our guy Carlton Davis there. That was nice. A couple tidbits. My first reaction was maybe we did overpay a bit. But then, I kind of get this belief of if he stays healthy, it might be, fair compensation, because this dude was a lockdown. And yeah, right when he was talking about, there's a clip going around. I found the clip, and Jamar Chase says hardest receiver or cornerback he's faced was Carlton Davis. So granted, he hasn't been in the league and faced, every cornerback, but still, that's a nice thing to have on your resume for Carlton Davis.
Oh, it's outstanding. I did some deep diving into Carlton Davis. So for some people who don't know much about him and only know him because Jamar Chase talked about him and the Lions traded for him, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to steal the stage and just read off a few stats for us real quick. Okay. 69 pass deflections over the last 5 seasons, to attribute to what JT was saying. That's 14 a season. 9 interceptions over the last 5 years. The box score shows that he's got some stone hands, but honestly, I don't really care. Like, interceptions are great, and that's what we want, but that's what we got Kirby for, man. We're all right with that. The interceptions, they'll come. Just get those balls passes deflected down. From 2019 to 2022, the average quarterback rating against Carlton Davis was 83.4. However, it did take a step back last year. Average opposing quarterbacks had a 96.1 QB rating against them. Not that QB rating means too much, but just to kind of give us an idea. He was pretty good for 4 years in a row. Never played all 16 games in a season. Last 3 years, his ADOT, which is average depth of target against him, was under 10 yards. So they're not airing it out too much against him. Has not allowed 5 or more touchdowns in a season over the last 3 years, 3, and then 4. It took a step back from 2022 to 2023. In 2022, he allowed 52 receptions on 93 targets for 622 yards, 3 touchdowns against and 1 pick, where last year he allowed 51 receptions on 83 targets, so 1 less reception, but 10 less targets, 110 more yards allowed last year, but did come away with and allowed one more touchdown last year than 2022, but did come away with an extra pick. So nothing like crazy, but just to give kind of everyone an idea, like JT said, he was the top cornerback for the Bucs during their big run. Took a step back last year. But like he said, the pass defense kind of did in a hole, and it wasn't until they got into the red zone did they kind of clamp down. And Lions fans are pretty used to that. Maybe it's our cornerbacks, maybe it was our defensive scheming, but we allowed a lot of yards just to, not break when it came to the red zone. So I think he's going to fit right in. Honestly, I think he's going to fit right in. I do think the third round was a little bit more than I wanted. We did get this 2 6-rounders back, but I have a feeling we won't even use either of those 6 rounds. They're going to be wheeling and dealing. Brad Holmes will be making trades. And if we went and tried to draft a cornerback in the 3rd round, which I have said we are not going to be drafting a cornerback early, if we tried to go draft a cornerback in the 3rd round, we'd be hoping that he's somewhat comparable to Carlton Davis. So it's like, here, let's just go get someone that we know we're in a win now mode. We are no longer just trying to build for the future. We are win now, and we will be win now for the next 5 years, hopefully more. So I like the trade a lot. That's all I wanted to say on that.
I also like the trade. I believe Carlton Davis helps our secondary get better. I mean, along with Cam Sutton, along with the development of Brian Branch, it doesn't hurt. We're going to talk about another guy the Lions signed in A. McRobertson later on. But all this just is because we didn't make the Hollywood splash trade that broke world news like some other teams did, especially in our division. Some people might feel a little underwhelmed. But I predicted this. These are the kind of guys Brad Holmes go for. Now, the only worry I get about Carlton Davis was there, like some reports that his demeanor wasn't really. I guess he gets called soft a little bit around the league. He's known as like a player might not be willing to tackle, blah blah blah. I'm not really worried about all that because I feel like any player that joins the Lions will buy into the culture that Dan Campbell's instilling, and that's grit. And Carlton Davis is going to join the grit party. So overall, I really like it. It improves our team. We didn't break the bank for it. It's it's Brad Holmes to a T. I have no issue with it. I'm a Brad Holmes loyalist until he fails a draft.
Sure. And while Adam's muted and does his ritual of muting and talking, I did want to bring up one thing. What is Brad Holmes what's his record? I'm trying to jog in my head real quick. What's his trade record right now? Outside of the Jared Goff trade, what other trades has he done that
He
has
traded
been
for
like
the receiver that didn't work from Denver? What was his name?
Trinity Benson.
Trinity Benson. There was like minor. Yeah, it's.
I don't.
There was another.
Did we do any other trades? If you're listening, I know there's a bunch of people listening. If you can comment, kind of.
Yeah, throw it in the comments if you could think of a Brad Holmes trade. It's not many.
No, there's not many. I was just trying to gauge on what his trade winning percentage is, because we know his draft percentage is above average, right? He's winning the draft, that's for sure. I just free agents.
You can add them together, like the free agents and the trades with Brad Holmes, because they're both questionable to a certain extent, unlike the draft.
I agree.
All right, wait, hold on. Here we go. Okay, so DPJ last year. So nothing much, small. So here I'll list them all off. So after Carlton Davis, or before I should say, we trade DPJ for a 2025 sixth. So this is also kind of gauges what we use our sixth rounders for, because there is kind of decent amount. Denzel Mims for a sixth. Both of those guys didn't work out. Riley Patterson for a seventh didn't work out. DeAndre Swift. This is one where we traded away a player. We got back a fourth round and a seventh round. The seventh ended up being Antonio Green. The fourth round pick won't be until next year's draft, 2025. So, okay. And then going back to Broderick Martin, when we traded up for him, sweet miss.
So I'm going to say he's not winning his trade battles right now, and free agents are quite an iffy. I trust Brad Holmes in every way, shape, or form, but there's no reason for us not to be critical. Like we can't just this just can't be like an all-out love affair for Brad Holmes as much as it is every time we do a show. There's a little bit of criticism that can be thrown his way, and that is one of the things that I hope this works out amazing, right? I hope this works out really well. Last year, our two secondary acquisitions were Cam Sutton and CJ GJ. I don't know if they worked out great. I think they worked out enough to get us to the NFC Championship game and almost as close to the Super Bowl, for sure. And so you can argue each way. I'm not trying to argue either way. I'm just saying that I think it's okay and fair to say that Brad Holmes still needs to prove his worth a little bit when it comes to free agency and trades, especially in the trades department. And roast me if I'm wrong,
I just want to say this about the draft real quick. If he hits on one more draft, this draft coming up, the Lions are going to win the Super Bowl next season with a relatively healthy team, knock on wood.
Yeah.
But that's how good his first couple have been, to the point that his free agents and trades have. I'm cool with it. I'm definitely looking forward to a Brad Holmes.
Julius, breaking up a bit.
Julius is breaking up the whole bit.
Yeah, the whole bit. I was looking at Nick and I was like, "Was he hearing? Are we?"
Oh,
no, am I there? Am I back?
Let this play. Julius, carry on. Wrap that up.
No. I was just gonna say, Brad Holmes, 3 drafts in a row. Big things next year.
That's how you do it, man. And I've had that belief too of like, it was last year-ish, midway through the season, where I kind of realized Brad Holmes, I shouldn't say like guaranteed, but I've never felt more confident about coach, GM, player, anyone that would be able to bring a championship to their sport to Detroit. And Brad Holmes, stay the course, man. He's going to bring us a championship. So ultimate story for another day, but
especially at the Lions. The Lions we've never had anyone in our lifetime ever. Like unless you were born and you were alive and watching football and going to the games in 1950, there has never been a chance that we like this confidence level that we have. And we've had confidence before, but it's always been false confidence. This feels like the most true confidence I've ever been a part of. And it's so fun. It's so fun.
And going back to the Brad Holmes trading, honestly, like the only slam dunk we've had was the TJ Hockenson trade, where we pretty much dished him away, didn't have to pay him, and we got a second and a third where we turned that into quite a bit. But other than that, he hasn't also made, this has been his biggest, I will say this has been his biggest trade, where draft capital trade to date. So maybe when he gives up higher picks, he not cares a little more, but maybe is just like more confident that this guy is a surefire and not just, a dart throw where, these DPJs, Mims, Riley Pattersons, those are kind of just, we'll see if they work out for us. But if they don't, whatever, it's just a 6-7. Now it's a third. So there's no whatever if this guy doesn't work out. And also, too, while we're talking Carlton Davis, do you think we'll re-sign him? Because he is on his last year of his deal. He owed $14.5 million. And if we do re-sign him, how long would you be looking to keep him for? Because my belief is if we give up a third, there's no way we're going to let this dude walk, given to what happened last year where, we didn't want to trade any draft capital during the season for a guy who might not re-sign. So, Nick, start with you first.
Damn, I'm sorry, bro. I was reading Bill Lyons' comment there, and I stopped paying attention to what you said. Who are you talking about?
Tiny lie. Carlton Davis. So he's on his last year of his deal, owed $14.5 million. Do you think we re-sign him, or do you think this was just kind of a see if he's good enough to get re-signed, or do you think there's something in the works?
The way Brad Holmes plays his games, no, I don't think we re-sign him. I think we give him this year to prove himself. Next year, go make his money where he needs to, but do what you need to for us this year. It's how Brad Holmes likes to play it. Instead of signing him on a one-year prove-it deal like Marcus Davenport, we just traded for him on a one-year prove-it deal. Like, though this is like the biggest trade, and we did give up a draft capital, like a good third-round pick for him. So there is more potential that he re-signs with us than, like, we'll say like CJ GJ or any of the other one-year contracts we ever signed throughout the Brad Holmes era. But if I had to bet right now $100, is Carlton Davis going to re-sign with us or get an extension or anything? I would say no.
It's a good point, because a lot of these signings are 1 years, 2 year, maybe.
He loves them, dude. He loves his 1 year signings, dude. He loves them.
I'm not sure if we would give up the number 96 pick, a top 100 pick not for a 1 year deal. Like,
that's true. Yeah, it's fair.
But is it possible with Brad Holmes? Yeah. Like you said, Nick, we've seen it. So I'm kind of on the fence on what happens, but I feel like we gave up a little too much just for 1 year.
Was it the 96 pick we gave up, or don't we have 2 third rounds?
We had ours in the Vikings.
On the TJ Hockenson trade.
And we gave up the Vikings third round pick for Carlton Davis.
I believe so, which was the earlier one.
Which is like 70 something or 80 something, right?
I thought it was pick 96 we gave up. Maybe we gave up our pick.
Is that right? So I can't confirm that. I don't know. I haven't.
No, right here. It's pick 73. Yeah, it was.
Those the Vikings
higher than pick 96. So
it was TJ Hockenson.
I hope we re-sign Carlton.
They'll be a second rounder. We gotta re-sign him.
Are we allowed to do the Carlton dance like every time he does?
Bro, I was gonna bring that up. Bro, every time he does something great, I'm gonna do the Carlton dance on the show.
Yeah, isn't that the Carlton? Yeah. Ow, boy.
Every time.
Fuck the seatbelt, bro. We going Fresh Prince, dude. We Carlton this shit up, dude. I can't wait. I love it.
Oh, yes. I'm kind of with Julius there, especially the pick 73. Now, could I see Brad Holmes letting him walk? Yes, but I do think that we'll work some sort of extension around him or something. But let's dive into some other free agency, because this has been an insane free agency. Probably the craziest, players going to different teams and free agency madness I've ever witnessed. A lot of fantasy football. If you're a fantasy football fan, you are in heaven right now, especially if you play Dynasty, because all these trades are just looking like you're playing Madden franchise mode. So I'm going to start with outside of the division first. So our North divisional rivals, pretty much everyone has been making splashes left and right. The biggest, let's go Kirk Cousins. He is scared out of Minnesota. Aiden Hutchinson did it to him, gave him the old boot, and now he is in Atlanta where we don't play the Falcons, so we're not going to be playing them. And honestly, I think this gives us two, not gimme wins, but like the Vikings have always kind of been the Lions' kryptonite. Granted, Dan Campbell has an outstanding record against them, but without Kirk Cousins, and if they brought in Sam Darnold, and then they also brought in Aaron Jones on top of that. So with all this mess they have here, it would shock me if Justin Jefferson was just like, I'm out of here. Bye-bye. See you later. So, boys, with all this, do you think the Vikings are, any type of threat? And Nick, we'll start with you first. Do you think they're, looking for a quarterback in this top 15 pick they have?
Yes and yes. I do think they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. To win in the NFL, I think you need to have a strong defense along with a very good offensive line. I don't think the Vikings have the best offensive line, but when you got a guy like Aaron Jones, it helps you out a little bit, along with all the defensive impact. Greenyard, who did they sign on defense? They signed Blake Cashman, a ton of people on defense. I can't even remember them all right now. But yeah, they're going to go after J.J. McCarthy. It's going to be the J.J. McCarthy show in Minnesota, and they're going to win because McCarthy's a winner, and I actually predicted him to be a top 5 pick, and I still think he will. I bet Minnesota trades up to get a quarterback and does not wait at the pick that they have right now. I think they get McCarthy, and the same way McCarthy won in Michigan is exactly how they're going to try to win in Minnesota. Kevin O'Connell is a very good coach. They know what they're doing there. And when you have a guy like Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, you can just kind of throw the ball to, and they'll do the rest. It's a solid mix. So I think Minnesota's good, the 3rd best team in the division, but will be absolutely fighting for a wild card spot. Even if it is J.J. McCarthy, I think there'll be a regression next year. But I think this year with the rookie quarterback and you just trying to win like the way Bill Belichick and the Patriots used to win when Brady was young, that's how you're going to try to win. You are going to try to run the ball and play defense as much as you can, and that can do it. I think that's a very good way to win in the NFL, as opposed to trying to go out there and just light it up like Atlanta did. Like, we're just going to throw it a ton. Like that just doesn't work. So I think Minnesota still has a chance this year. I think they're going to be good, and I do think they draft a quarterback in the 1st round.
Interesting. See, I'm completely opposite. I think they're going to be terrible. I think quarterback or not, even if they somehow get Caleb Williams, I think they are going to finish 4th in the division, have a big regression, and just, pull out a couple win games where you don't expect it. But ultimately, just they got Grenard, they got Andrew Van Ginkel, Cashman, a lot of, good, not great signings. Aaron Jones, that's another interesting one where it seemed like the whole NFC North played musical running backs these last 2 years, with Monty coming to Chicago, Swift going to Chicago, or Monty coming to Detroit, Swift going to Chicago, Aaron Jones coming to Minnesota, and all we need is Dalvin Cook to go to the Packers, which would complete it. So other than that, I'm not too worried about the Vikings. I think it should be a couple easy wins for us. But Julius, do you think the Vikings will finish dead last, or are you kind of with Nick, where you think they got a little spice to them?
I think they're going to finish 3rd. I think the Bears are going to finish dead last. And I think the Packers improved the most yesterday. Adding Josh Jacobs to an already pretty good offense with the emerging Jordan Love. The Xavier McKinney, the safety, they added him to that defense. So, a little worried about Green Bay. Minnesota, until I see their quarterback situation vastly improve, I'm not really that worried. I think they're going to be 8-win team right as it stands. We'll see what kind of draft they have. But I can see them finishing 3rd at this point.
I like it. Yeah. Jumping into the Packers, they did a couple things, mainly cut Aaron Jones and brought in Josh Jacobs, which was a big shocker to not just us NFC North fans, but anyone that plays fantasy football, and any Raiders fans too, especially because they were all expecting Josh Jacobs to return. So you got Josh Jacobs in, Aaron Jones out. I believe A.J. Dillon's on the last year of his deal, so they'll have kind of like that same dynamic duo. But Yeah, I think the Packers did kind of, beef up a bit. They didn't do anything crazy. I do think, Josh Jacobs is a phenomenal player, but running back isn't, it's not the position that'll take you over the top. It's kind of the seasoning on top. So honestly, not too.
Same with safety as well. And running back and safety, Minnesota and Green Bay both went after.
Yeah, Xavier McKinney, that was a nice
Chicago and Green Bay both went after. Running back and safety. And those positions, like you said, really kind of don't move the needle as far as wins and losses.
And then they did cut Bakatari, which was kind of expected. And I believe they cut another lineman. So they didn't really play with Bakatari all last season. So it's kind of, we're not even going to notice it essentially. But any thoughts on Green Bay, Nick?
Yeah, I thought they kind of moved down. I thought they moved lateral, if not down. I think the replacing Aaron Jones with Josh Jacobs is not a benefit. I don't think that's going to help the offense, in my opinion. I think Aaron Jones is a better running back. He just lived up his time in Green Bay. I think going from Darnell Savage to Xavier McKinney is an upgrade, but not that much. Losing Bakatari and John Runyon are huge pieces. You then go and add a running back. I don't care what your running back is. I don't care who he is, unless he's Christian McCaffrey. Outside of that, your running back is only as good as your offensive line. So I assume Green Bay is going to go heavy offensive line in the draft. I think they're still a very good team because I think Jordan Love is good. But now that teams have a full year of watching Jordan Love, I bet we'll see a regression next year. Normally, quarterbacks don't just start out really good their first year starting. I understand he backed up for a few years, but his first year starting and then just continually get better and better and better. And I don't think Jordan Love is Patrick Mahomes. So I think we're going to see a little bit of a regression. I do still think they're the second best team in the division behind us. But I do not expect more than 10 wins from them. I do expect them to get 10 wins pretty much and go 10-7, where the Lions are going to be sitting at 12-5, 13-4 for the division, or maybe just 17-0 for the Lions. I don't know.
Let's hope so. Yeah, that seems about right. The Packers kind of didn't lay the hammer down. They did in like a mirage aspect where it's like, oh, they got Josh Jacobs. Well, yeah, exactly. You're right, Nick. Josh Jacobs from Aaron Jones. I mean, granted, Jacobs is a little bit younger, but we've seen Aaron Jones tear apart the Lions time in and time out. So nothing new here. So, and then not to mention you're paying Josh Jacobs all this money. It's taken away from, maybe they were looking at, a defensive lineman, a linebacker, whoever, and now they went and decided to pay Jacobs instead. So that helps out there. But jumping into the Bears, they're kind of doing the same thing that they've done the last couple of years. They just have a ton of money to go spend, and they just go spend it at will. And they did the Jalen Johnson re-signing, which I think was their biggest. That was huge for them. And then the next biggest thing was the DeAndre Swift. I don't think he's going to, catapult their team a lot, but I do think it did help out a little bit. It will be kind of interesting to see him play against the Lions twice a year. And I do hope the Bears, or maybe just the Lions, sign Equanimeous St. Brown, Amon-Ra's brother, who was on the Bears the last few years and is now a free agent. So would love to see, brother dynamics, ex-Lions dynamics, and you got the Monty versus Swift and the St. Brown brothers going at it. So that would be fun to watch. But honestly, the Bears, they're struggling trying to find a trade partner with Justin Fields. So Julius, I'm going to hit you with this question. Do you think Justin Fields is on the Bears roster come draft day?
No. I feel like he gets traded before that. And he's going to be traded to be a backup. Sorry, Bears fans, but it didn't work the same way it didn't work with Trubisky. And if I were you, I posted this on X, I would draft J.J. McCarthy if I was the Bears.
First overall?
Yeah.
Overall. After watching the combine, I'm convinced he is the best quarterback prospect in the draft. If you're watching Chicago Bear fans, I know y'all on X, y'all still trash. However, y'all cannot be trash one day, maybe, if y'all draft J.J. McCarthy, quarterback, Michigan, number 1 overall.
All right, Julius, I'll tell you what. Here's what's going to happen. Bears are going to draft Michigan quarterback. He's going to have a solid career. Then he's going to go play for Indianapolis, have a solid career there. Then he's going to retire And then JJ McCarthy is going to recruit Tom Brady, and JJ is going to coach Michigan after Sherrone Moore passes on the torch. And JJ McCarthy is going to do exactly what Jim Harbaugh did and take us to the Natty.
I was just trying to give a little optimism for Bears fans. And by the way, Bears, I know y'all not going to do that. Y'all going to draft Caleb Williams and go ahead and continue to fail in life.
See, for me, I don't know. I've been seeing some reports that Justin Fields might still be on this team come draft day or even week 1, which would be absolutely insane. I'm just hoping this happens. I'm really hoping Ryan Poles is just being stubborn, won't trade him, because the longer they hold on to Fields, like the least the leverage goes away, because everyone knows you're taking Caleb Williams if you have this pick. And if you trade away the pick, then, you know, I hope they keep Justin Fields to trade away the pick, but I don't think that's going to happen. So what my ideal thing is, they keep Fields, draft Caleb Williams, and try to trade Fields during the season, and it just implodes on them, and they end up trading Fields for like a 5th round pick halfway through the season, and it's just pretty much a dump at this point.
I have a feeling that Fields will be a draft day trade. So, yes, he'll be on the team when it comes to draft day, but whatever team doesn't get one of those first 4 or 5 quarterbacks that they want, i.e. Denver, Las Vegas, Minnesota, New England, Washington. There's a ton of teams out there that could use Justin Fields, even though I don't think he's that good. There's teams he's better than, in my opinion, he's better than whoever's starting in Vegas right now. Is it Aiden O'Connell or Jimmy Garoppolo, or Denver's starting? I don't know who Denver's quarterback is right now. Honestly, I couldn't even tell you who their quarterback is right now. Yeah. So I think he'll start for a team that's not Chicago. They're just not going to make the deal right now because the asking price is either too much and teams don't want to pay for it. But when you get past the first 15 picks and 5 quarterbacks are gone, teams are going to be a little bit more likely to say, oh, wait a minute. Here's the 2nd and a 4th rounder. Let me get Justin Fields kind of situation. So I think he's on the team, on the Bears when we get to the draft day, but it won't be long. It'll be like DeAndre Swift last year.
The Raiders just signed Gardner Minshew yesterday to compete.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, to compete with Aiden O'Connell for the quarterback spot next year. So
I love me some Gardner Minshew. Honestly,
I wanted him so bad, man. If we could have Gardner Minshew as our backup,
just like Fields would be.
You guys and your backup quarterbacks, dude. I only done.
Oh, I love our backup in Hooker.
Yeah. Go Hooker. Right. It's Hooker season, dude. It's Hooker season.
While we're talking Hooker season and the Detroit Lions, let's transition into the beloved Lions, who everyone is here to hear about. We start things off with the Marcus. Actually, no, it was the Graham Glasgow re-signing. We brought back Graham, did that right away. And Nick, this kind of speaking to your point of Brad Holmes is a 1-year, 2-year type guy. Well, Graham Glasgow got a 3-year deal, and this dude isn't, a bright, spry youngster. He's, the veteran. So for him to get a 3-year deal, that shows and tells me a lot about what Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, Frank Haley, all the coaches, the Lions, what they think about this guy. So Graham Glasgow, a 3-year, $20 million deal. And then if you want to compare it to Jonah Jackson, who he did end up losing, he went over to the Los Angeles Rams, who we will be facing this year, which will be a kind of ironic, where Jonah Jackson will be blocking for Stafford at Ford Field. Yes, that's going to happen this year. So be prepared for it. But yeah, Jonah Jackson got a 3-year, I think $51 million, 34 guaranteed. So granted, he is younger, but just a monster difference for what seemed to be like we're Glasgow getting the better production. So Nick, start things off. This Graham Glasgow re-signing, 1 to 10. What would you grade it?
This is a 10. This is easy 10. We all wanted Glasgow back. We got him on a team-friendly deal. He had his 1-year prove-it deal. It's what Brad Holmes does. He proved it, and we were like, all right, come on back, buddy. You're good. He loves Michigan. He loves being in Detroit. It's the reason he came back last year. Avenged Sevenfold loving dude. Like, I love Graham Glasgow more than anything. The guard position is something you can get, and I bet we get early in this draft, 1st or 2nd round. that will fill the left guard position. Jonah Jackson was not a first-round pick for anyone who doesn't remember, but was a Pro Bowler his rookie year. When you are sandwiched between guys like Taylor Decker and Frank Ragnow, or Penei Sewell and Frank Ragnow, you look a lot better than maybe you are. Jonah Jackson got his bag. He went and ran with it. Good for him. I hope he is successful, just not too successful with the Rams, but I hope he does really well. But I love the Graham Glasgow, and I think giving him that 3-year deal, and we got him for, what'd you say, $20 million, I think. That's so team friendly compared to the way deals are right now with the expansion of the salary cap, that how much it went up this year. Just super friendly. You could tell that we wanted him here and he wanted to be here. We made it work, and he'll ride off on the sunset as a Detroit Lion, in my opinion, after winning the Super Bowl. So I love it. I think it's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, and he's only guaranteed $9.5 million, which reasonable amount. He is 31 years old, so there is a chance where the injury bug could bite him. But honestly, for this contract, it's worth the gamble, absolutely. Julius, any thoughts on Graham Glasgow and kind of comparing it to Jonah Jackson? And would you maybe like to, pay up a little bit more for Jonah Jackson to come back?
Thoughts about Graham Glasgow. Nick reiterated it very well. I will rate it a 10 as well. He's a main staple of our offensive line, which we need to try to maintain as much as we can because it's the staple and the pillar of our team. And as far as Jonah Jackson walking, he wasn't drafted by Holmes, right? So we kind of see this. No, he was drafted by Quinn. We kind of see the last remnants of the Quinn Tricia regime leaving the team. And I always kind of felt that way about Jonah Jackson. And even Tracy Walker in the back of my head, also another Quinn Tricia loss that we had this season, that they just didn't, that they still had that little stain of Quinn Tricia on them, that Jonah Jackson, he was so injured on and off the last 2 seasons. There was a bunch of rumors that he kind of didn't want to play through injury. He wouldn't, I don't want to get into all that. However, I want this team to be full of grit. So I agree with both decisions on re-signing Graham and letting Jonah walk. If it would have been the other way around, I'd have been a little bit more confused about it. So that's probably where I stand with it.
Does that mean Taylor Decker is the last Quinn Tricia pick on the team?
No, Taylor Decker is special. Friend of the show.
No, of course, yeah. He's not going to get rid of him, but I'm just asking, is he the last one on the team?
Let's see. Well, Germ came back. He was with, but Germ is also different. Like
was
Decker
Glasgow drafted by Quinn Tricia?
I'm not. Maybe the first year, or
Glasgow was.
Yeah,
was a Quinn Tricia.
But again, he's kind of he's the outside. He's not. He plays different. He's a great guy. He's a great guy.
Exactly. It's that it factor that they're looking for. Holmes and Campbell is grit, and we kind of start to see it in players ourselves as fans. It's crazy.
Yeah. The second Jonah Jackson couldn't do math on the sideline was the second I was like, all right, dude, we out.
Right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is Frank and Decker. The only two, Frank and Decker are the only two. We let go of Tracy, let Julian Okora walk, and then we let Jonah Jackson walk. So yeah, it all makes sense that if you're not a true superstar like Decker or Glasgow, then pack your bags, buddy.
Is it fair to say Quinn Tricia kind of knew how to draft offensive line if he was the one who drafted Decker, Glasgow, Ragnow?
That was his one thing where he was actually pretty good at everything.
Pretty good at drafting offensive line. I ain't gonna lie.
My friend was actually a B- drafter. He was not a bad drafter. He just did not hit on his free agent signings and trades.
Well, his first round picks were dog trash. Wasn't he the one who drafted?
Or was it his second round picks that were dog trash?
I think both, right? Outside of Taylor Decker, Jared Davis was a first round pick.
Yeah, Jared Davis,
Jeff Okuda.
Jeff Okuda. They never found any gems late in the draft.
Not really.
The one I will say, the one late gem that he found, Kenny Galladay, 3rd rounder.
He wasn't even a gem, dude. Matt Stafford made him good. As soon as he left Matt Stafford, Kenny Galladay was like, "Oh,
Right.
that's yeah." But nonetheless, he fit our team and produced. So
I guess
I'll kind of give it to him. And then Jalen Reeves-Maybin was a 4th rounder, so
Right.
I'm kind of giving that one too. But
the new president of the Players Association, dude. Shout out Jerem, that's captain, dude.
What does that mean? Can he like control? Like, does this mean like the refs aren't going to be on our asses this year? Because he's like the president of the Players Association, where it's like, hey, we got some respect now. This is my team. I'm the president. You guys, the Bears. I don't see anyone on the board for the Bears. So yeah, refs, go have fun with them.
I hope that's what that means.
First time in Lions history.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. Shout out Jerem. He's awesome.
Speaks to his character, man. I mean, you're a special teams / like hybrid in and out linebacker, not a full team player. You're getting voted as NFL Players Association president. I mean, that's
pretty much the most popular player in the league, or most respected. I mean, to be voted to that.
How funny would it be if he was like, when they do the NFL 100, when all the players vote, they're like, Jalen Reeves-Maybin, 99.
He should be
honestly,
NFL.
It would shock me. Sorry to cut you off, Juice, but because we saw Matthew Slater, that superstar special teamers for the Patriots that they had for years. I'm pretty sure he cracked the top 100 at least once or twice, and has made a name for himself. So if Jalen Reeves-Maybin could stay this course of just being a special team superstar, and even coming in at linebacker from time to time, because he did have a couple solid, nice pass deflections. And no, he had a deflection that led to an interception. I thought he had an interception, but nonetheless, let's jump into some of our other signings because there was a few more. The Detroit Lions, we signed defensive end Marcus Davenport from the Vikings. This one was a little interesting. I kind of compare him to a Romeo Okwara type player where he can produce. He's gotten injured, a fair amount of time, but he's not really a guy that we're counting on. He'll come in, he'll probably have a couple sacks if he plays, 13, 14 games, but he's not a dude that's like James Houston, where it's like, oh, we got Houston and Hutchinson lining up. Here we go. And it's more of a depth piece. And this is what I was talking to Nick about before the show. Dan Campbell came on 97.1 a few days ago, but before free agency started, and he preached depth. He was like, we're going to build through depth. We love depth. Depth is what we're only going to do. And it was pretty much a foreshadowing of what we've been seeing with the Lions of, Mick Robinson, Davenport, Carlton Davis. No elite no Les Snead signings, Chris Jones signings, but a lot of guys to, build behind. And if Davenport can come in and, create a pressure to a Hutchinson, he's getting a breather, or, Houston's hurt or whoever is out, then I like it. So, Julius, we'll flip to you. Marcus Davenport, if you know anything about him, feel free to share. If not, just pass on to Nick.
I believe he comes from the Minnesota Vikings.
Yep. And he was the guy that...
I can actually remember him doing some decent damage against the Lions last season on a few snaps. And I agree totally with you, Adam, that he can be a great backup to a guy to give a breather to Aiden Hutchinson. They're built similar. They have similar strengths, although Aiden has way more than Davenport does. And Davenport has a lot more weakness, especially defending against the run and setting the edge. Was rated pretty lowly in those regards. But overall, I like it as a backup depth signing on the defensive line. I have nothing against it, especially if he got great.
Yeah, big potential, big guy coming out of the draft. The Saints traded up to get him in the first round, 14th overall pick in 2018 by the Saints. Was just a high potential guy, very raw, but had all the athleticism there. In 2021, he had 9 sacks in 11 games. It's phenomenal. In 2022, he had half a sack in 15 games. It's the worst I've ever seen in my life, I think. It's fucking terrible. Last year with Minnesota, he played 4 games. He had 2 sacks. It's on pace for about 8.5 sacks for the season. If that's what we get, that's very fair. I want him to play all season. He's coming off of a big injury. This is a good prove-it deal. We've given prove-it deals, and we've talked to, it's been the theme of this show. It's what Brad Holmes likes to do. If he comes out here and proves it, he won't be with us the following year. But this coming year, like, let's get the most out of him. Let's get 11 sacks in 16 games. Let's get 12 sacks in 17 games. Like, that's more than we could ever ask for. James Houston, we don't know if he'll be back on our team this year. I don't know who our edge rusher is.
No, Houston, you keep saying this. Houston's under contract still. Yeah.
Oh, why did I
He's
think
a free agent this year, though. He's on his last year.
Oh, I thought it was just a 2-year contract for him. Like, we're 100% sure of that?
Yeah, he's on his last year of his contract coming up. Yeah.
Then that's my fault. My apologies. I was thinking that he was a free agent this year. And I've talked about it a couple times in shows, so that's my apologies. I'm just trying to keep everyone on their toes. Well, regardless, okay. So we got James Houston. Kaminsky takes a pay cut to stay here with us. We still have Pascal. We bring in Marcus Davenport. Just depth, rotational. Let's have him be a successful sack player and not have him out on the run plays. So on first downs, we're not going to see Davenport out there. But third down, second down, we can see him and Houston kind of swap. So I'm very excited about this. I like the prove it deals because players know that if they don't prove it this year, then the next year they might not even get a prove it deal. Like, this is it. This is go make your money in your NFL. So I like Marcus Davenport a lot. A few other things that I noticed from him: 3 double-digit quarterback hit seasons in his first 4 seasons. Got after the quarterback. We'd love to see it. 7 forced fumbles in his first 4 seasons. Just a few extra stats. These are stats that we should be paying attention to because forced fumbles are huge and QB hits, as we know, are huge. Maybe you don't always get home when the QB still has the ball, but getting a QB hit is very vital because that creates pressure and that creates sloppy throws from quarterbacks. And if our quarterbacks in the NFC North are Caleb Williams and J.J. McCarthy, getting to them quick is going to be very helpful. Getting to Jordan Love quick is very helpful. So it's not like we're playing the Patrick Mahomes and the Josh Allens where they can kind of stay in. We don't know who we're going to be playing in our division via the opposing quarterback. So I like the Marcus Davenport. No, it's not Brian Burns, and no, it's not any of these big guys, but it's depth. It's what Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes want to do, and that's what we're doing. So I'm okay with this. Better than nobody.
You mentioned he's a former first-round pick. It kind of reminds me of Charles Harris, how we signed him in Brad Holmes and Campbell first season on a 1-year prove-it deal for Miami after he was a failed first-round bust in Miami. And he came in, I think he had a double-digit sack season or maybe 8 or 9 sacks. But it was good enough for the Lions to extend him that season.
Exactly. Yep.
And then, yeah, Harris did get beat up. So, and he was older too. So a little bit different situation where if Davenport does produce, this dude, he might have a future with us. So it is kind of, asking for a bit because like you said, Nick, he hasn't really done a whole lot, but yes, former first rounder and, it can happen. So honestly, I like the depth signing, not nothing I hated or loved, but our next guy, Amik Robertson, a cornerback. We keep adding to our defensive backs. I do believe this is mostly because we let Chase Lucas walk. We let Jerry Jacobs walk. We might be letting Chauncey Gardner-Johnson walk. He's still out there on the market, but Amik Robinson signed a 2-year deal coming from the Raiders. Ultimately, this dude has been pretty solid. I feel like he's going to compete for that cornerback 2-3 spot. If he can, beat out Sutton, I don't know how I feel about that. That'll be really weird to me because I'll feel like Sutton should be that cornerback 2. So if he is that cornerback 3, he'll be regressing. But if Amik takes that cornerback 2 spot, that means this dude might be, the real deal or something special. So, Julius, you got any thoughts on Amik Robertson? He has faced, go ahead.
5'9", 195 pounds, not the biggest corner, but he can play both inside and outside. He's very versatile, and he has a good nose for the ball. I don't have his stats on hand. I'm sure Nick does. However, I can tell you that he definitely has a nose for the ball. He offers some limitations, but ultimately he adds to the depth in the cornerback room, which we need because that's the weakest spot in our team, in my opinion. And I'm not so sure that Brett Holmes is going to draft a quarterback in the first couple rounds to supplement, the weakness at that position. You draft a guard in the first round, save a cornerback for later. But overall, I have no problem with it. It's status quo, Brad Holmes. I'm good with it. Latest stats out, Nick.
So correct me if I'm wrong first. He's going to be he's nickel cornerback, right?
Well, he played like 50-50 inside, outside. And he started, I believe, like 19 games in the last 2 seasons. So he has experience.
Yeah, I took this as CJGJ's replacement. That's what I'm taking this as. To kind of play behind and with Brian Branch, along with being able to play along with Cam Sutton on the cornerback 2 area. Just think of our defensive backs this year. We have first and foremost, let's think Emmanuel Mosley and Carlton Davis. Together, they have to equal at least 17 games played together combined. Then we have Cam Sutton and Amik Robertson. Last year, we had freaking Cam Sutton and Jerry Jacobs and nobody else. We ended up having to get Kindle Vildor halfway through the season just to have a somewhat cornerback that we could put out there. So it's huge upgrades right now for the worst position group that we've had. So I absolutely love this. Amik Robertson has played in 17 games the past 2 seasons, 17 games each. That's healthy. And that's what our cornerback position never has. So that right there is a win.
Brad Holmes was like, we're getting a dude that plays every game, and we're getting a dude that could miss every game.
Exactly, dude. That's what we did with Sutton and Mosley last year. He likes to have the ifs and things. 2 interceptions in both 2022 and then 2 interceptions in 2023. 1 forced fumble in 2022, 1 forced fumble in 2023. 1 sack in 2022, 1 sack in 2023. 2 tackle for losses in 2022, 2 tackle for losses in 2023. The dude is the most consistent cornerback I've ever seen. He's allowed 39 receptions in 2022 and 39 receptions in 2023. The dude is straight consistent. In 2022 is 39 receptions on 64 targets. In 2023 it was 39 receptions on 68 targets. 4 touchdowns allowed 2 years ago, 3 touchdowns allowed last year. 2 interceptions both of those years, like I said. And the career best in quarterback rating last year, an average opposing quarterback, had an average of 87.4 QB rating against him. Just solid. Small, like you said. That's why I get Brian Branch vibes out of him. I don't think he's gonna be cornerback 2. I think we'll see Cam Sutton and Emmanuel Mosley try to kind of hold those 2 down, or hold that cornerback 2 position down, while we're gonna let Carlton Davis run with the cornerback 1 or with the wide receiver 1s. It did scare me that JT said small receivers can get to Carlton because we play DJ Moore twice a year. So we'll kind of see how that goes. And Jordan Addison is also another small receiver, though maybe Carlton will be on Jefferson. I don't know exactly how that'll go. But I like Amik Robertson. I like that Brad Holmes is adding cornerbacks. In fact, I'll take one more cornerback signing, and I don't want to draft a cornerback. I don't want to. Now that we've got these guys, I don't think there's a need to. Let's go sign one more, and let's use our – I just don't think the depth in the cornerback position in the draft is that big. I think there's a lot of good ones up front, and I think they're going to be – I don't think we're going to take a cornerback in the first round, like I've said this entire time. So I just don't think that trying to draft – I don't know, someone in the 6th round. I guess Max Melton could be a good one. He's about the only one I would take after the 2nd round, but I don't really care for any of the cornerbacks late in this draft, so give me another signing. But I absolutely love Amik Robertson. Antonio Pierce talked very well about him, said he had the small guy syndrome, where he just thinks he's super big, he'll play out of his mind, he'll play tough, and it just sounds exactly the way Antonio Pierce put it. It sounds exactly like a Detroit Lions type of player. So I think honestly him and Carlton Davis are going to be just great additions to this team, along with bringing Mosley back and still having Cam Sutton.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Nick. Add one more name, and honestly, there's a guy who I just peeped, free agent cornerback, Jordan Lewis. 28 years old, still feels like he's been in the league for 50 years, but he's still only 28 years old, but he is a veteran, has played his entire career with Dallas, but a Michigan man, went to Cass Tech High School, so he probably is a Lions fan too. I feel like he would be a great addition to bring back. He's not someone that would cost a lot. Would be a guy that would be a 1 year prove-it deal, whatever. If would kind of fit our system, nothing too pricey. I know Julius would love it too because he's a Michigan boy. But honestly, just kind of keep it like that. Maybe even if we wanted to bring in a safety and Quandre Diggs. I know he's a little older, but very familiar with Detroit, loves the Lions, and I feel like he would be a solid.
Anyone that's ever played for the Lions or Michigan, like he's like, they should come back to Detroit. Dude.
I mean, it's worked out 70% of the time. It's worked out 100% of the time.
That's great.
Julius, any comments on our cornerback depth? Would you like to see us address it in the draft, or maybe just add one more splash?
Honestly, looking at the depth chart right now, I feel like safety is a bigger need than corner. So and honestly, safety with Kirby Joseph and Malafanu and Brian Branch, I wouldn't draft a corner in the first round either. First round cornerbacks outside the top 10, outside Jeff Okuda, have horrible records as corners, and don't really pan out their rookie years. It takes them a while to adjust. And the Lions need rookies. We already know how Brad Holmes likes his rookies, ready to roll. So cornerback is definitely a position that I don't think we had targeted in the draft. Maybe a late round Chase Lucas type. I wouldn't be surprised. But free agency, we could just keep adding to the depth. We want to sign Jordan Lewis for 1 year, prove it deal. Might not even make the preseason roster. Cool.
like it. Getting all the juices flowing for what we could do out here. So finally, I'll bring it to my last question before we get you guys out of here. The Lions free agency is still going on. There's some solid names out there. One name that just hopped right into my brain, and it's courtesy of Julius. Might be stealing your boy too. That's Kevin Zeitler. Now that we let Jonah Jackson walk, we brought back Graham. We still have an opening on this left guard spot. I'm not sure which spot Graham plays, but Zeitler, if we could bring in a veteran dude that could go next to Decker, next to Sewell, I feel like that would be very, very nice. But Nick, has there any other free agent or any other, former Lion out there that you're like, man, Josh Reynolds, why has he not been re-signed yet? Man, you're not a big CD Deuce guy, but, why hasn't he been re-signed yet? Or is there any, other free agent you'd like us to go out and pursue?
I do want us to get Josh Reynolds back. I'm just curious on how this whole drafting thing goes. As of now I don't really. Now it's just kind of like, grab another depth piece at cornerback, grab a depth wide receiver, grab a depth inside offensive line, and that's about it. I don't need any big splashes anymore. Brad Holmes did his job, in my opinion. Let's go focus on the draft. That's where we win that's where we build our team. That's where we win games. So let's go draft offensive lineman with the first pick, or Tavondre Sweat, defensive lineman. Get an inside offensive lineman and an inside defensive lineman with your first 2 picks. And other than that, go sign one more edge rusher. Just someone that could, another prove-it deal. Someone that could make it.
Like it. Anyone else that tickles your fairy, Julius?
If possible future Hall of Famer Kevin Zeitler wants to join the Lions to join us on a run to the Super Bowl in his last professional season, and he still got the juice, according to PFF, he does. Bring him along. Other than that, I fully agree with Nick. Minimum at best. Continue to add to the depth. Mock draft season. We about to get on it in the next couple weeks. I know as a show, it's going to be real hard with the Lions because we can honestly see them go multitude of positional ways. So we'll see what we brew up.
We will. Can't wait.
There's some solid defensive ends out there too. Real quick, couple big names. Daniel Hunter's still out there, and I'm pretty sure he's walking from Minnesota. A couple other solid names. Yannick Ngakoue. Wouldn't mind him either. I know he's always been pricey. There's one other dude on here. I don't know. But yeah, I guess those two are the only two guys that I kind of. No, Emmanuel Agba maybe, but honestly, I'm kind of with you, Nick. Edge rusher, maybe one more small little piece, but other than that, I kind of like what we're doing. And finally, last question. Give us the grade overall. Nick, I'll let you decide if you want to do grades or if you want to do the ranking 1 to 10.
I'll rank it overall free agency so far. I'm giving it obviously because it's Brad Holmes, you can just say 10 because you trust him. But we said we can be critical on the show, and Brad Holmes has swung and missed on a few free agents / trades. So give me a 7.5. I was hoping of these 3 picks, one of them was a home run hit. Even though I knew that's not what we were going to do, I still wanted it in my gut because it's free agency, and I like when that comes across my screen. But I'm giving it a 7.5. But we ain't done yet.
Julius? Yeah, I know. And honestly, too, I'm trying to hold on because you guys know what's going to happen. We're going to click end, and it's going to be like Detroit Lions sign, Jadeveon Clowney or something. We're there, oh, crap, because it's literally happened with David Montgomery last time. I'm pretty sure me and Julius finished up an episode and we sat down, and right after the show, they got the Montgomery signing. So, Julius, overall, what are you grading?
I'm going to go contrary to Nick, and I'm going to give it a letter grade, and I'm going to give it a B+. Okay. And the only reason I'm not giving it an A- or A+ is because we didn't sign Kevin Zeitler, and we didn't sign Daniel Hunter. We didn't sign that veteran dog who wants to join the grid train. But I'm not worried because I have hopes for the draft. A trifecta from Brad Holmes would deliver us to the promised land.
Yes, sir. And I kind of agree with both of you guys. I think we're right in the middle. I'm going to go a flat out 8.0 B-. Lions have done solid job. Nothing crazy. Nothing like, oh my God, like some of my other buddies in my group chats are freaked out about. But ultimately, where I'm at the point of trust Brad, he could go sign a ham sandwich and I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. This ham sandwich is going to produce somehow. Amen. But other than that, check us out on Twitter, Honolulu Blues _. We got all sorts of good tweets and updates going on for this free agency. Check us out. And we got a lot of stuff. Instagram, Honolulu Blues _. Spotify now, Twitch. Anywhere you're watching this, give us a like, subscribe. It helps out the show and the program. But as always, boys, go Lions.